Rain hit Gotham like it was angry at the streets. Batman moved across a rooftop with no wasted motion. His cape snapped in the wind. Below him, a black van swerved through traffic with its lights off. 2 police cars chased it. Sirens screamed, then cut out. Gordon's voice stayed in Batman's ear anyway. 3 armed suspects stole medical supplies from a hospital dock, Gordon said. They fired at nurses. Batman's jaw tightened. I see them. He fired a grapnel. The line sang. He swung over an alley and landed without a sound. The van burst out onto a bridge approach. It was the kind of bridge Gotham pretended was safe. It wasn't. A man on the van's roof stood up with a rifle. He aimed at the nearest police car. Batman sprang forward. And the sky ripped open. It did not look like lightning. It looked like the air itself tore like paper. A bright white crack spread across the clouds. Wind rushed down hard enough to shove cars sideways. Streetlights blew. Glass shattered in a dozen windows at once. The gunman froze. The van drifted, tires screaming. Everyone on the bridge looked up. Something fell out of the tear. It came down fast. Too fast. It hit the street just past the bridge ramp with a sound like a bomb. Asphalt lifted and broke. A crater formed in a single blink. The shockwave punched outward. Cars rocked. People hit the ground. Batman's lenses narrowed. His suit recorded everything. Heat, energy, unknown. In the crater, a man lay face down. His suit was strange. Blue, red, and torn at the shoulder. A heavy cape, a symbol on his chest half burned with soot. Smoke rose off him like he had flown through fire. Batman moved, but not in a straight line. He stayed in cover. He watched the man's hands. He watched for weapons. The thieves saw him too. Fear made them brave in the dumbest way. "Shoot him!" one yelled. Bullets snapped through rain. They should have torn flesh. They did not. The man in the crater pushed up on his palms. Bullets hit his back and fell like coins. Some flattened. Some bounced and skittered into the wet street. The shooter stared at his gun like it had betrayed him. The man stood. He was tall. Broad shoulders. Dark hair wet with rain. His face looked young but tired, like he had not slept in a week. He did not look angry. He looked confused. A car nearby tipped from the earlier shock. It slid toward the bridge rail, straight toward a group of people who had been knocked down. The man's head turned. His eyes focused. He moved. Batman had fought fast people. This was not that. The man crossed the distance in a blink. He put one hand on the car's hood and stopped it like it weighed nothing. He lifted it just enough to slide it back into place. Then he crouched and helped a woman stand. Careful, gentle, like he was afraid of hurting her by accident. "Are you okay?" he asked. His voice was calm. Not Gotham. Calm. Not the hard calm of someone used to darkness. This was the calm of someone who expected the world to make sense. A child cried. The man looked around, heard it, and found the little boy pinned under a fallen metal sign. He lifted the sign with one hand. He did not even strain. He set it aside and picked the boy up like he was made of feathers. "It's okay," he said. "I've got you." The thieves backed away now. One grabbed a hostage, a teenage girl in a hospital volunteer jacket. "Stay back," the thief shouted. "Or I." The man's eyes flicked to the girl's face, then to the thief's finger on the trigger, then to the line of cars behind them. Batman's gloved hand tightened around a batarang. This was the moment when choices killed people. The man did not rush in like a bull. He did not threaten. He did not plead. He simply moved. One breath. One blur. The thief's gun was gone. The girl was behind the man's shoulder, safe. The thief was on the ground with his arms pinned in a neat lock, not broken, just held. The girl stared at the man's cape like it was not real. Batman stepped out of the shadow. He did not point his gun. He did not need to. His presence was the weapon. "Don't move," Batman said, voice low, iron hard. The man turned slowly. His hand stayed open. He looked at Batman's symbol, then at the cape, then at the rain sliding off the cowl. For a second, something like relief crossed the man's face, like he was glad to see a hero at all. Then it vanished. The city behind Batman did not feel like relief. It felt like hunger. "Where am I?" the man asked. Batman said nothing. His sensors kept running. His mind kept building a list. Unknown alien, unknown power, unknown motive, unknown entry point. The man's eyes lifted to the skyline. He stared at Gotham like he was trying to hear it breathe. And somewhere deep in the city, behind old stone and older money, something else listened back. Batman did not take the stranger to the Batcave right away. First, he took the bridge. Gordon arrived with officers who tried to look brave. Their boots splashed through shallow water. They stared at the crater and the flattened bullets like they were looking at a magic trick. One young cop made the sign of the cross and whispered, "Holy." Gordon's eyes stayed on Batman. "Tell me that's not another metahuman problem." Batman's voice was flat. "It's a problem." The stranger stood near the crater. He kept helping. He lifted a crushed barrier off a man's leg. He pushed a broken car door open with 2 fingers. Every time someone flinched away, he stepped back and let them choose to come closer. He was careful. That made Batman more worried, not less. Careful meant control. Control meant planning. Planning meant someone could do terrible things on purpose. Batman approached. He kept 10 feet between them. That was not a distance meant to stop this man. It was a distance meant to show Batman wasn't panicking. "You came from the sky," Batman said. "You didn't land like a plane." "I didn't mean to land at all," the man answered. He looked down at his suit like it was proof he was real. "I was somewhere else. There was a tear. I tried to stop it. Then I fell. Name." The man hesitated. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he was searching his own thoughts for the right door. "Clark," he said finally. "Clark Kent." Batman logged it. He did not accept it. "Do you have weapons?" Batman asked. Clark blinked. "No." Batman's gaze flicked to Clark's eyes. "Powers?" Clark's face tightened with a familiar kind of concern, not fear for himself. Fear of what people might do if they heard the truth. "Yes," Clark said quietly, "but I'm not here to hurt anyone." Gordon stepped forward a half step. "If that's true, Clark, I'd love to know why my bridge just got a new crater." Clark looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I didn't choose the landing." Batman moved his hand, a small signal. 2 drones rose from behind a building edge. Small, silent. They hovered at different angles and painted Clark with soft scanning lights. Clark did not swat them. He did not glare. He watched them with polite patience, like he had done this before. Batman tested with sound next, a low pulse that would make most people wince. Clark's jaw tightened, but he did not flinch away. His eyes watered slightly. He endured it and kept still. That mattered. Batman stepped closer. "You can hear that?" "Yes," Clark said. "It's unpleasant." "So you can be affected," Batman said, more to himself than to Clark. Clark's brow furrowed. "Of course I can." Batman studied him. Gotham taught Batman to assume the worst, but it also taught him to watch for the small tells. The stranger was not chasing attention. He was not threatening. He was not pushing a story. He was simply trying to do the next right thing in a city that did not believe in that phrase. Batman made a choice. Not trust, not friendship. A controlled lane. "Come with me," Batman said. Clark's shoulders eased a fraction. "Okay," Gordon stared. "You're bringing him to your—" Batman cut him off. "Gordon, keep civilians away from the crater. Nobody touches anything. If anyone asks, A gas main exploded. A gas main, Gordon repeated, looking at the flattened bullets again. Batman's voice did not change. Yes. Gordon sighed, then nodded. He would take the lie if it kept Gotham from turning into a riot. Fine. But if he sneezes and a building falls, I'm calling you. Clark looked at Gordon like he wanted to promise something that would calm him. He did not. He simply said, I'll be careful. Batman led him away from the bridge, not by obvious routes, not by direct roads. He guided Clark through alleys, rooftops, and empty lots, testing how the man moved. Clark followed easily. He did not demand answers. He did not fly. Batman noted that too. A man who could fly and chose to walk was either hiding something or trying not to scare anyone. At the Batcave entrance, Batman stopped. This part was the real test. Most threats tried to push. Most strangers asked questions. Most liars filled the air with words. Clark waited. Batman opened the hidden path. The cave swallowed them. The air changed. Cold stone. Machine hum. The distant drip of water. Clark's eyes widened, but he did not act like a thief. He acted like a man stepping into someone else's home and trying not to track mud onto the floor. Alfred met them near the main platform with a tray in his hands, like this was normal. Master Bruce, Alfred said, calm as ever. His eyes slid to Clark. He took in the torn suit and cape and the symbol. And, guest. Clark's face softened. Hello. Alfred nodded with perfect manners. Tea? Batman stared. Alfred. It's already made, Alfred said, and you are wet. Clark blinked, then gave a small, uncertain smile. Tea sounds nice. Batman's eyes narrowed. We're not having tea. Alfred did not move. We are having tea. We can panic and be rude, or we can panic and be polite. Clark looked like he might laugh, then stopped himself. Batman gestured toward the medical bay platform. Sit. Clark obeyed. He sat on the edge of the table like it might break under him, even though it clearly would not. Batman kept his distance. He pulled up scans. He projected images of the sky tier, energy readings, radiation that didn't match anything in Gotham's database. Oracle's voice came through the cave speakers. That spike was seen by half the world. It's already on military networks. Batman replied, I know. Oracle continued. The crater dust has odd particles, like a material that shouldn't be stable here. Batman glanced at Clark. Anything you want to tell me? Clark looked down at his hands. I'm not sure. I was trying to stop a breach, a tear between places. It was pulling things in. I pushed back. Then, it grabbed me. Batman tapped a screen. You're saying you crossed universes? Clark's eyes lifted. Yes. Alfred set tea down on a small table near the medical bay, like it was a peace offering. Coaster, he said to Clark, gently. Clark looked at the cup. I'm sorry? Alfred slid a round coaster under the cup with a tiny motion. Tea rings on the table are frowned upon. Clark nodded quickly. Of course, thank you. Batman watched this whole exchange like it was a new kind of weapon. Alfred was doing what Alfred always did, making the room human, testing people with small rules. Clark passed the test without trying to win it. Batman stepped closer and held up a small device. I'm going to take a blood sample. Clark did not like it. It showed in his face, but he held out his arm. If it helps you trust me. Batman took the sample. The needle bent. Batman's eyes flicked up. The metal did not even pierce the skin. Clark looked embarrassed again. Right. That's normal for me. Batman said, Explain. Clark took a breath. My body is different. I'm not from Earth. Not your Earth, at least. Batman's face stayed blank. His mind moved fast. alien biology, massive strength, near invulnerability. And yet he spoke like a man who wrote apologies in his head before he said them out loud. Oracle's voice sharpened. "Bruce, I'm getting pings. ARGUS. A lot of them." Batman's reply was low. "Waller." Alfred's eyebrows lifted. "That will be unpleasant." Clark looked between them. "Who is Waller?" Batman did not answer the question directly. "Someone who doesn't like unknowns." Clark nodded slowly. "Then we're the same." Batman ignored the attempt at humor. "I need more than a first name and good manners." Clark's gaze didn't flinch. "Ask." Batman's questions came in clean cuts. "Why are you here?" "I don't know," Clark said. "But people were in danger. So I helped." "What do you want?" Clark answered without thinking. "To keep people safe, and to find a way home." Batman paused. A small pause. "Home means family." Clark's face softened, then tightened. "Yes." Batman watched him for lies. He found grief instead. Oracle jumped in, voice calmer now. "I scanned public records. There is no Clark Kent in Gotham databases. No fingerprints. No school files. Nothing." Clark exhaled. "Because I've never been here." Batman's eyes narrowed. "In my city, that's a problem." Clark leaned forward, careful with his tone. "In my life, being a stranger isn't a crime." Batman's voice went colder. "It is when strangers fall out of the sky and change the rules." Clark held Batman's gaze. "Then maybe the rules needed a stress test." The cave went quiet for a beat. Alfred cleared his throat softly. "If we are going to continue this conversation, might I suggest we do it with everyone seated and nobody glaring? I'm running out of coasters." Batman turned away. He moved to the main computer and started building files. Contingencies, materials, frequencies. Everything that had bothered Clark even a little. Clark watched him do it. He did not take offense. That almost made it worse. Nightwing arrived next, dropping into the cave with easy movement, like he was entering a living room, not a fortress. "Okay," Nightwing said, looking from Batman to Clark. "Either you finally built a robot boyfriend, or we have a situation." Clark blinked. "Robot?" Batman shot Nightwing a look. Nightwing lifted both hands. "Joke. Sorry. Hi, I'm Nightwing." He stepped closer and held out his hand. Batman's shoulders tensed. Clark looked at the hand like it was a test he wanted to pass. He took it gently, careful not to crush bones. Nightwing's grin flickered for half a second. Not fear. "Aw. Okay," Nightwing said, quieter now. "That is a grip." Clark smiled slightly. "I'm trying to be polite." Nightwing nodded, then looked at Batman. "He saved people on the bridge. Gordon's already calling it a miracle." Batman said, "Gordon doesn't use that word." "Tonight he did," Nightwing replied. Then to Clark, "You got a symbol on your chest. You got a cape. You got the whole thing. What do we call you?" Clark's eyes flicked down to his chest, the half-burned symbol. He looked like he was deciding how much truth this city could handle at once. "For now," Clark said. "Clark is fine." Batman filed that away. Identity withheld. Not necessarily a lie, but not full honesty. Oracle's voice returned. "Bruce, I'm also seeing chatter in the old money channels." Batman's eyes narrowed. "Court." Nightwing's smile faded. "They noticed already." "They notice everything," Batman said. Clark looked between them. "What is the court?" Batman answered. "A problem that wears a mask you can't punch." Clark absorbed that. He did not like it. He could stop a falling building. He could not stop a secret that lived in people's choices. Alfred handed Clark a dry towel like he was a guest at a hotel. Clark took it. "Thank you." Alfred's eyes were kind. "You're welcome. Try not to melt anything. The kettle is not armored." Clark looked startled. "I won't." Nightwing laughed once, then stopped when Batman didn't. Batman turned back to Clark. Here's the deal. You don't move around Gotham alone. You don't act without oversight. You don't enter government sites. You don't fly over certain areas. You don't. Clark raised a hand, calm. Batman. Batman paused. The stranger said his name like it was obvious, like it was not a secret. Batman's eyes sharpened. Clark added quickly, "That's what they called you on the bridge." "I can hear very far," Nightwing muttered. "Great." Batman's voice stayed even. "You don't call me that." Clark nodded. "Okay, then, what should I call you?" Batman stared at him, and for a second, the cave felt like a courtroom. "Batman," Batman said at last. Clark's expression softened. "All right, Batman. I agree to your rules for now." Batman did not like the "for now," but he liked that Clark agreed at all. Oracle said, "We also need to consider the world. This isn't just Gotham." Batman replied, "I know." Above them, far from the cave, satellites tilted. Eyes turned. Screens filled with the image of a man standing in a crater, bullets at his feet. In a clean white office in a black government building, Amanda Waller watched the footage without blinking. "Find out what he is," she said, "and find out who can stop him." In another city, in a taller building, Lex Luthor paused a meeting and stared at the same image on a private screen. He smiled like he had just spotted a prize. And deep under Gotham, behind doors that had been sealed for years, old stone vibrated with the leftover energy from the sky tear. The city had been feeding on fear for a long time. Now it had tasted something else. Something bright. Clark's first night in Gotham did not end with sleep. Batman set him in a reinforced room built for dangerous guests. Not a cage meant to punish, a box meant to measure. The walls held sensors. The floor held pressure plates. The air held tiny particles Batman could track. Clark sat on the edge of the simple bed and listened. He listened to the cave water drip. He listened to the Batmobile cooling down. He listened to Nightwing arguing softly with Batman outside the door. "He helped," Nightwing said. "He might be the reason they come," Batman answered. "Or he might be the reason they stop." Batman's voice went quiet. "Nothing stops in Gotham." Clark looked down at his hands. He had saved people on a bridge without thinking. That was normal to him. What wasn't normal was the feeling in the air here. The city felt like a wound that refused to close. He missed the sun. He missed open skies that did not feel heavy. He closed his eyes and tried to remember the moment before he fell. The roar of the breach. The pull. The sense that something on the other side had noticed him. A knock came at the door. Alfred entered with another cup of tea, like he was stubborn enough to fix the world one polite action at a time. "You didn't drink the first one," Alfred said. "I did," Clark replied. I don't know if I'm allowed another." Alfred set the cup down. "You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to be confused. You're even allowed to be powerful. Just try to be honest while you do it." Clark swallowed. "I'm trying." Alfred's eyes softened. "Good. One more rule." Clark blinked. "Yes?" Alfred pointed at the cup. "Coaster." Clark slid it onto the coaster so carefully it looked like a ritual. Alfred gave a small nod. "Progress." Then Alfred left him alone with the quiet. Clark stared at the door after it closed. He thought about Lois, about his planet, about the life he had fought to build. He thought about Gotham's skyline, sharp like broken teeth. He did not know how to go home yet, but he knew something else. If he left this city like this, people would die tonight, and tomorrow, and every night after. That was not something he could ignore, not even in a world that didn't want him, not even under a man's rules. Above the cave, the city moved, and in an old, empty building that smelled like dust and chemical rot, Dr. Jonathan Crane listened to police radio and smiled. He did not smile because of Batman. He smiled because the radio had used a new word. A flying man. A crater. Bullets that didn't work. Crane's fingers tapped on a glass vial on his desk. He had spent his whole life studying fear. He knew what fear did to bodies. He knew what fear did to crowds, but he had never had a subject like this. "Bring me a sample," Crane told his trembling assistant. "Of what?" the assistant asked. Crane's eyes gleamed behind his glasses. "Of the miracle." 2 days later, Gotham tried to pretend the bridge incident was a gas main explosion. Gotham was bad at pretending. Videos had already spread. They were blurry and shaky, but the details were clear enough. A man in blue and red. A cape. A symbol. A car stopped with one hand. A hostage saved without a punch. People argued in diners and on buses. Some said he was an angel. Some said he was a weapon. Batman did not argue. Batman prepared. He gave Clark a limited patrol route. He gave him rules that sounded harsh, but had a point. No public speeches. No chasing criminals across the whole city. No ripping open doors without knowing what was inside. "Gotham loves traps," Batman told him, voice flat. "They'll bait you with one life to take 10. Clark nodded. "Then I'll watch for the 10. Batman studied him. "You can't watch everywhere." Clark met his gaze. "I can try." Nightwing worked with Clark on the ground level. Not because Clark needed training to fight. Because Clark needed training to read Gotham. "Here," Nightwing said one night, pointing to an alley. "That puddle, it's not just rainwater." Clark leaned slightly, listening, smelling. His face tightened. "Gasoline." "Yep," Nightwing said. "And sometimes worse. So when you swoop down like a rocket, you might turn a bad scene into an explosion." Clark absorbed that like a lesson that hurt his pride. Understood. Oracle fed both of them patterns, where violence clustered, where calls came from, where police response was slow. Clark wanted to do more. He wanted to fix bigger problems. He wanted to tear down rotten systems and rebuild them in daylight. But every time he pushed too hard, Batman's voice grounded him. "You're not from here," Batman said. "You don't know who pays who. You don't know which judge is owned. You don't know which orphanage is a front." Clark's hands clenched, then relaxed. "Then teach me." Batman's eyes narrowed. "I'm not your teacher." "Fine," Clark said. "Then I'll learn." That same night, far from the Batcave, Crane's men crept into the sealed bridge area with stolen access badges. They moved under fog and broken light. They scraped crater dust into bags. They chipped off pieces of scorched asphalt. They gathered flattened bullets as souvenirs. When they returned to Crane, he handled the samples like they were holy relics. He ran tests. He watched readings spike and settle. He breathed in a trace of the air trapped in the crater dust, and his pupils widened. "Not human," Crane whispered, thrilled. "Not normal." His assistant swallowed. "What do you want to do with it?" Crane smiled wider. "Fear," he said. "I want to make fear that fits him." The first signs came at Gotham General. A nurse screamed in the hallway. People ran. A security guard fired his weapon at nothing. Clark heard it from miles away. His head snapped up on a rooftop. "Hospital!" Nightwing was beside him. "Already? It's a trap." Clark didn't argue. He moved. He did not fly like a missile. He rose fast, yes, but controlled, like he was trying to be a quiet presence instead of a thunderbolt. He reached the hospital roof in seconds. The air smelled wrong. Not smoke, not fire. Chemicals. Clark's eyes scanned through walls by instinct. He saw people huddled in stairwells. He saw security locked in a room, shaking. He saw a man in a scarecrow mask, moving like a shadow on the lower floor. Clark's feet touched down softly. Then the world tilted. A wave hit him, not like a punch, but like a lie poured into his senses. The hospital lights seemed to flicker into darker shades. The hallway stretched too long. The air felt thick, like breathing through cloth. Clark's vision filled with a shape at the end of the corridor. A bat. Not Batman. A giant, twisted bat shadow with eyes like holes. Clark froze for half a second, not because he was weak, but because his brain was trying to understand what his eyes were telling him. He blinked hard. The shape stayed. "Clark," Oracle's voice came through his comm. "Report." Clark forced his voice steady. "There's toxin in the air." Nightwing arrived behind him, mask lenses catching the fluorescent light. "Scarecrow." Clark nodded, jaw tight. "Yes." Batman's voice cut in. "Do not inhale." Clark almost laughed at the order. It was too late for that. He held his breath anyway, because rules mattered when you didn't understand the battlefield. The bat shadow at the end of the hall twitched. Then it lunged. Clark moved. He shot forward, fast enough to blur, and slammed his fist into empty air. The shadow passed through the hit like smoke. Clark's eyes widened. He spun, hearing screams below. He focused on what mattered. Real people. Real danger. He dropped through the floor, careful, controlled, making a clean hole in the ceiling instead of collapsing the room. He landed in the main lobby. Chaos. Patients stumbled like drunk people. Staff cried. A mother clutched her child and screamed at Clark like he was the monster. "Don't touch us!" she yelled. "You're part of it!" Clark's chest tightened. "I'm not." A stretcher rolled uncontrolled toward a glass wall. Clark caught it and steadied it with one hand, then set it down gently. Nightwing appeared on a balcony above. He fired a grapnel line and swung across to kick a masked thug away from a fire alarm panel. Batman's voice went tight. "Crane is watching you. He wants your fear on display." Clark swallowed. The irony stung. Fear did not usually have a place in Clark's life. He faced disasters. He faced monsters. He faced gods. But this city's fear was personal. It wanted to crawl inside you. Clark's eyes flashed red for a fraction of a second. He stopped himself. Heat vision could cut through walls. It could also cut through pipes. It could ignite fumes. He chose control. Clark inhaled carefully through his nose, then exhaled a cold blast that turned the air to frost. The white fog rolled across the lobby in a wide sheet. It pushed the toxin away from the nearest crowd. It iced over vents. People stared as their breath turned visible. "Move," Clark said, voice calm but firm. "Stairs, not elevators. Keep low." Some listened because his tone sounded like a firefighter, not a god. Some didn't. They were too scared. Batman and Oracle guided the evacuation like a machine. Nightwing herded people toward exits and kept them from trampling each other. Clark did what he did best. He became a shield. He caught falling ceiling tiles. He held a door frame when panicked people slammed into it. He lifted an overturned ambulance off a trapped driver outside without even looking, because he could hear the driver's heartbeat. And still, the toxin kept trying to write lies into his head. Every time he looked at Batman on a nearby rooftop through the broken hospital windows, he saw a different shape behind Batman's silhouette. A bigger bat. Wings too wide, eyes too empty. Clark's stomach turned. Batman's voice snapped in his ear. "Kent, focus. That's what it wants." Clark clenched his jaw. "I'm focused." "Then tell me what you're afraid of," Batman said. Clark hesitated. He didn't want to give the city that. He didn't want to give Crane that. But Batman wasn't asking for poetry. Batman was asking for an anchor. Clark swallowed and answered with the simplest truth. "Failing," Clark said. "Not being fast enough." Batman's reply was immediate. "Good. Now use it. Let it drive you, not drown you." Clark did. He went faster. Not reckless. Not wild, just more. He moved across the hospital and the nearby streets like a living emergency system. He pulled people out of cars before they hit barricades. He caught a bus that had lost control and set it down in the street like a toy. Nightwing watched him for half a second and forgot to breathe. Even Batman paused, just once, his gaze tracking Clark's path like he was watching a storm with a mind. But Crane was not done. On the far side of the city, the bridge approach from the first night flooded with fear, gas from hidden canisters. Then a second point. Then a third. Crane had learned something important. Clark could save people anywhere. So Crane made the danger everywhere at once. Gotham's radio lit up. Mass hysteria! People jumping into the river. Traffic pileup. Gas in the tunnels. Clark hovered above a rooftop, listening to the city's screams stack on top of each other until they sounded like one long wail. He could move fast, but Gotham had found a way to make even. Speed feel too slow. Batman's voice came through hard and focused. We split. Nightwing, with me. Oracle, rewrote emergency services. Kent, Clark waited. Batman hated saying it. Clark could hear that. Batman forced it out anyway. Clark, you go to the tunnel. If it collapses, people will drown. Clark nodded and launched. He streaked through the sky, and rain peeled off him like he was cutting through water. He reached the tunnel mouth and stopped in the air above it. The scene below looked like a nightmare. Cars were jammed. People ran the wrong way. Some fought each other. Some screamed at shadows. Clark dropped into the tunnel like a guided missile, but he landed soft. He felt the road under his boots. He felt cracks in the ceiling from stress and panic. He saw the gas in thin layers, hugging the ground like fog. He held his breath and blew cold air down the tunnel. Frost spread over the gas line. It slowed the flow. Then the lights flickered and died. Darkness filled the tunnel, and something moved inside the darkness that was not just fear. Gas. Clark's eyes glowed, and his X-ray vision cut through concrete and metal. He saw people, he saw cars, he saw the tunnel structure, and he saw a shape above them that did not show up like a normal body. It was like a stain in reality, a wide shadow with edges that looked like feathers and claws. It wasn't fully here, not yet, but it was forming. Clark's throat went dry. This wasn't Crane anymore. This was something older, something the city already knew. The shadow spread along the tunnel ceiling like a living night. As panic rose, it grew thicker. When people screamed, it pulsed like it was breathing. Clark put himself between it and the crowd without thinking. Back, Clark said, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to. The people? The shadow? The city itself? The shadow bent toward him, and in the tunnel's dark, Clark saw a flash of a different place, a broken sky, a tear between worlds, a force on the other side that had noticed him when he tried to stop it. His heart thudded. The shadow wasn't just feeding on fear, it was learning him. Clark rose upward until his shoulders nearly brushed the tunnel ceiling. He planted his boots against the concrete like he could brace the whole city. His eyes burned red, and he fired heat vision not at the shadow, but at the canisters along the tunnel wall. He cut clean holes in them, then froze the leaking gas so it clumped and fell like snow. The people below stared up in confusion, even through panic. Move, Clark said again, louder. To the exit. Follow the sound of my voice. Some followed. Some stumbled. Some stared at him like he was a dream. Above them, the shadow reacted. It didn't roar like a monster. It didn't swing a fist. It simply pressed down. The concrete groaned. Cracks raced like lightning across the tunnel ceiling. Clark's arms shot up. His hands met the concrete. For the first time since he arrived, he had to push hard. Not because the ceiling was heavier than he could handle, because it was failing in many places at once, and he had to hold it all, without letting any chunk fall on anyone. His muscles locked. The suit on his shoulders tightened. He held. Nightwing's voice crackled in his ear. "Clark, you okay?" Clark forced words out through clenched teeth. "Tunnel, holding the ceiling." Batman's voice cut in, sharp. "How long?" Clark didn't lie. "I don't know." Batman didn't panic. He never did. He shifted to action. "Oracle, clear the exit route. Gordon, get every unit you have to the tunnel mouth. Nightwing, with me. We're going to find Crane." Clark heard that, and something inside him steadied. He wasn't alone. Even in Gotham, even under rules. The shadow pressed harder, like it hated that thought. Clark's vision swam. The toxin still clawed at his senses. It tried to turn Batman's voice into laughter. It tried to turn Nightwing's voice into screams. Clark shut it out with one simple focus. People. He listened to heartbeats. Hundreds of them. He counted them as they ran. He held the ceiling and guided them with his voice. "Keep moving," he said. "You're doing good. Don't stop." Above him, the shadow shifted and pulled back, like it had taken a bite and decided it wanted to save the rest for later. The pressure eased, not because Clark beat it in a fair fight, because it chose to withdraw, because it had learned something and was satisfied for now. Clark lowered the ceiling gently, guiding broken pieces into safe positions. He dropped to the road and exhaled. His lungs burned. He had held his breath too long. He stumbled once. Nightwing arrived at the tunnel mouth and caught him by the arm before he hit the ground. Nightwing's voice was low, amazed and shaken. "Okay," Nightwing whispered. "You're not normal." Clark managed a small smile. "You figured that out on day one." Batman arrived seconds later, cape dripping, eyes like knives. He looked at the stabilized tunnel, the frozen toxin clumps, the clear path for evac. Then he looked at Clark, not with trust, not with hatred, with something close to respect, buried under caution. "You didn't run," Batman said. Clark swallowed. People were inside. Batman's gaze shifted upward, toward the city skyline and the low clouds. "Something else was inside too," Batman said. Clark nodded slowly. "Yes." Batman's comm chirped. Oracle's voice came through, tight. "ARGUS drones are entering Gotham airspace. Multiple." Clark's stomach sank. "Who are they?" Batman's mouth turned into a hard line. "The people who don't ask first." In a clean white office, Amanda Waller watched live feeds of the tunnel evacuation. She watched a man hold up a collapsing ceiling like it was a door. She did not look impressed. She looked determined. "Get me everything," she said. "Name, origin, weakness, friends. If he doesn't have one, we make one." Somewhere else, in a forgotten corner of the city, Dr. Crane removed his mask and laughed softly. He had pushed fear into a new shape. He had seen something old wake up and lean toward the sky. And above Gotham, the clouds rolled, heavy and dark, like the city was closing its fist around its newest problem. Clark stood in the rain beside Batman and Nightwing. He looked up at the sky, Tyr's old scar in the clouds, now faded. He did not know how long he would be here, but he knew one thing for sure now. Gotham was not just a city. It was a test, and something in the dark had decided to take that test with him. Morning did not make Gotham feel safer. It only made the city look more tired. Gordon stood in the precinct parking lot with a coffee he had not tasted. His jacket was still damp from the tunnel. Reporters waited behind a line of tape. They shouted the same question in 10 different ways. Was it a terrorist attack? Was it chemical warfare? Is Batman involved? And who is the flying man? Gordon stared straight ahead. He had learned the hard way that you never feed Gotham's panic with extra words. "We are investigating," he said. "People should stay calm and follow emergency instructions." A reporter pushed forward. "Commissioner, is it true bullets didn't work on him?" Gordon's mouth tightened. He looked at the cameras. He looked at the hungry faces behind them. "If you were in that tunnel," Gordon said, "you'd be grateful someone held the ceiling. That's all I'm saying." He walked away while they kept yelling. Inside, officers argued in small groups. Some sounded awed. Some sounded angry. One old detective said, "We're already outgunned by half the freaks in this city. Now we got a sun god?" Gordon kept moving. He went to his office and shut the door. Only then did he let his shoulders drop. He didn't want to admit it, even to himself. But the truth sat heavy in his chest. That man had saved hundreds of people, and Gotham had already started deciding whether to love him or hate him. Gordon picked up the phone and dialed a number he never called unless he had to. "Batman," he said when the line clicked. "The press is circling. City Hall wants answers. And I'm getting quiet calls from federal people who don't like being ignored." Batman's voice came back low. "Waller." Gordon swallowed. "Yeah, her." Batman did not sound surprised. "Stay away from them." "Easy for you to say," Gordon muttered. Then he hesitated. "What do I call him?" There was a pause on the line. "Not a symbol," Batman said. "Not yet." Gordon exhaled. "Right. Not yet." He hung up and stared at the window. Outside, Gotham's streets kept moving like nothing had happened, like the city wasn't sitting on a new kind of storm. In the Batcave, the air was too clean. Clark sat on a metal chair that was strong enough to hold anything. His suit had been repaired in simple ways, not perfect ways. The tear on his shoulder was stitched, like someone fixed a wound, not a costume. He could have fixed it himself with speed and strength, but Alfred had insisted. "Let someone help you," Alfred had said, like it was a rule. Clark had listened. Batman stood at the main console with a wall of screens in front of him. Satellite images, police scanner data, chemical reports from the tunnel air, slow-motion footage of Clark holding up the ceiling. Batman watched the footage 3 times without blinking. Nightwing leaned against a rail above, arms crossed, trying to look relaxed. He wasn't. Oracle's voice came through the speakers. "It's everywhere now. The video. Even with edits, it's enough. People are making theories." Batman's reply was cold. "People will always make noise." Nightwing said, "Noise turns into fear. Fear turns into bad choices." Clark's hands rested on his knees. He listened to their voices and tried to ignore the heaviness in his chest. He missed sunlight. Real sunlight. Not the weak glow Gotham allowed through clouds. Batman turned toward him. "You said you're not from this Earth," Batman said. "Yes," Clark answered. Batman's eyes narrowed. "Name your planet." Clark hesitated. Not because he was lying, because saying it out loud made it more real. "Krypton," he said. Nightwing let out a low breath. "Okay, that's a lot." Batman didn't react with surprise. He reacted with focus. "How did you get your powers?" Clark stared at the cave floor for a second, then looked up. "This sun, your sun. It's different from my world's sun. It gives me energy." Batman's gaze snapped to a screen that showed sunlight charts and atmospheric readings. "So your power depends on solar exposure?" Clark nodded. "In simple terms, yes." Batman didn't smile. "Simple is not safe." Nightwing raised a hand. "Bruce, he just told you his home planet. He's not hiding everything." Batman's jaw flexed. "He is hiding plenty." Clark didn't deny it. He looked tired. "I'm not trying to trick you," Clark said. "I'm trying to avoid making this worse." Batman stepped closer. "You already made it worse by existing." The words were sharp, but Batman's tone wasn't cruel. It was honest. Clark took that like a hit anyway. Nightwing's voice softened. "What he means is, Gotham doesn't do new. It does new threat. Alfred appeared at the edge of the room with a tray, 2 cups of tea, 2 coasters. He didn't look at Batman first. He looked at Clark. "Coaster," Alfred said, gentle. Clark put his cup down exactly in the center of the coaster, like it mattered more than gravity. Alfred nodded once, satisfied, and then looked at Batman. "And you, Master Bruce," Alfred added, "will also use a coaster. We are not animals." Batman stared at him. Alfred stared back. Batman put his cup on the coaster. Nightwing covered his mouth like he was trying not to laugh. Oracle's voice made a small sound like she was smiling. Clark's shoulders eased by half an inch. He hadn't realized he needed that tiny moment. Batman cut through it. "Waller is moving assets into Gotham airspace," Batman said. "Drones, surveillance, containment teams." Clark's brow furrowed. "Why?" "Because you are unknown," Batman said. "And unknown things get boxed." Clark's voice stayed calm, but something harder appeared under it. "I'm not a weapon." Batman's eyes locked on him. "Then don't let them use you like one," Oracle added. "And Lex Luthor just pinged a private line to Wayne Enterprises. He wants to talk." Nightwing's head snapped up. "Lex? Here?" Batman's mouth tightened. "He follows power." Clark's eyes sharpened at the name. "Luthor?" Batman noticed instantly. "You know him?" Clark didn't answer right away. He didn't want to drag his world's problems into this one, but he also knew the truth mattered. "Yes," Clark said. "He's dangerous." Batman's stare deepened. "Explain." Clark chose simple beats. "He's brilliant. He has resources. He believes power should belong to him, and he hates what I stand for." Nightwing muttered, "Great. Now we have a local nightmare and an imported nightmare." Batman turned back to the screens. "We handle this in layers. First Gotham, second Waller, third Luthor." Clark asked, "And what about the thing in the tunnel?" The cave went quiet again. Batman's voice lowered. "That was not Crane's toxin alone," Oracle said. "It acted like it was feeding, like it was growing." Nightwing looked down at his hands. "I felt it, like the dark got heavier." Clark's throat tightened. He remembered that shadow pressing down. He remembered the feeling of being studied. "I fought monsters," Clark said softly. "But that wasn't just a monster. It was a city's nightmare." Batman's eyes stayed on the screens. Gotham has a lot of those. Clark looked at Batman. "Then why are you still here?" Batman didn't answer with words. He answered by turning and walking toward the suit rack, like the question itself didn't change anything. Nightwing answered instead. "Because leaving isn't a choice for him." Clark understood that more than he expected. He stood. "Then leaving isn't a choice for me either." Batman stopped for a fraction of a second, then kept moving. "Fine," Batman said. "But you do it my way." Clark met his eyes. "I'll do it the way that keeps people alive." Batman's voice went flat. "That's my way." Across the city, Amanda Waller watched Gotham like it was a file on her desk. In her world, fear wasn't a toxin. It was a tool. A screen showed the flying man holding up the tunnel ceiling. Another screen showed Batman moving like a shadow beside him. Another showed a zoomed-in still of Clark's face, wet with rain, jaw clenched in effort. Waller's expression did not soften. "Run every scan," she ordered. "Facial match, DNA guess, energy reading. I want a box built before he chooses to build one around us." A staffer hesitated. "Ma'am, if he's truly that strong," Waller cut him off, "then we don't challenge him with muscle. We challenge him with rules." She leaned forward. "This is Gotham. He's not here because he wants to be. That means he's already off balance. We keep him off balance." Another staffer said, "Do we contact Batman?" Waller's mouth twitched. not a smile, a warning. "Batman doesn't take orders," she said. "So we don't try to order him. We use the city's pressure. We use the press. We use politicians." She tapped the still image of Clark's face. "And we find out what he cares about. Nobody that powerful is empty inside." In a different building with cleaner floors and quieter hallways, Lex Luthor watched the same footage with a very different look. He watched Clark lift a bus like it was nothing. He watched Clark's face as he guided people with his voice. Lex's smile was polite and sharp. "So it's you," he said to the empty room. A woman beside him asked, "You know him?" Lex didn't look away from the screen. "I know a version of him, enough to understand the problem." He reached for his phone and dialed a number that should not have been available to him. "Wayne," he said when the call connected, "I hear Gotham has a visitor." The voice on the other end was calm. "Luthor." Lex's smile widened. "I prefer Lex, and I prefer not to waste time. You're watching him too." There was a pause. Lex continued, smooth as oil. "I can help you understand him. And if you help me, we can both avoid unpleasant surprises." The voice stayed cold. "I don't make deals with you." Lex chuckled. "You already make deals. You just call them contingencies." He ended the call first, like a statement. Then he stared at the screen again and spoke softly, as if Clark could hear him across worlds. "I wonder," Lex said, "what Gotham will do to your hope." Joker watched too. Not from a lab, not from a government office, from a filthy little room above an abandoned comedy club where the walls were covered in scribbles and broken mirrors. He sat in a chair that didn't match anything. He wore no mask. He didn't need one. A henchman held a tablet in shaking hands while the video played again. Joker leaned forward, eyes wide like a child watching fireworks. "Oh," he whispered. "Oh, that is adorable." The henchman tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. Joker snatched the tablet and paused on Clark's face. "That face," Joker said. "That face says he believes the world has rules." He turned the tablet toward his men. "You know what Gotham does to rules?" he asked. No one answered. Joker smiled. "It eats them." He stood and began to pace. "Batman has his rules," Joker said. "The city has its rules. And now the sky dropped in a big, bright rule all by itself." He clapped his hands once. "We need to welcome him." A henchman swallowed. "How?" "He can't be hurt." Joker tilted his head. "Who said anything about hurting him?" He walked close until the henchman could smell him. "We hurt what he loves," Joker said softly. "We hurt what he believes." He stepped back and spread his arms like a showman. "Let's see how fast he is when the choice is ugly," Joker sang. "Let's see how strong he is when the trap is inside his heart." He laughed, and the room laughed with him because they were scared not to. That evening, Batman took Clark to the rooftops, not to patrol, not to show off, to teach. From a high building, Gotham looked like a dark machine. Lights blinked. Sirens moved like insects. Smoke rose from places that didn't have fires anymore, because Gotham's air never fully cleared. Batman pointed, one gloved finger at a time. "Those neighborhoods," Batman said. "If you fly in bright and loud, you scare people. They'll run. Running causes stampedes. Stampedes kill." Clark listened. "So what do I do?" Batman's voice stayed hard. "You move like a shadow when you can. You be visible when it helps. You don't act like a god." Clark's eyes narrowed slightly. "I don't." Batman's stare didn't change. "People will say you do. Every time you save someone, you make someone else feel smaller." Clark absorbed that. He didn't like it, but he knew Batman wasn't saying it to be cruel. Nightwing landed nearby, rolling his shoulders. "Also, Gotham loves a rumor. If they can't understand you, they'll fill the blank with the scariest thing they can imagine." Clark asked, "What do they imagine?" Nightwing's grin faded. Everything. Oracle's voice came in. Heads up. I'm seeing a pattern of small robberies. Weird ones. Batman's head turned. Where? Oracle listed addresses. Pharmacies. Hardware stores. A place that sells party supplies. And a school chemistry storage room. Nightwing groaned. That's not small. That's Joker shopping. Clark frowned at the word shopping, then caught himself. He looked at Nightwing like he wasn't sure if it was a joke. Nightwing waved it off. Bad joke, but yes, Joker collecting ingredients. Batman's voice cut in. We stop him before he builds something bigger. Clark nodded. Then let's go. Batman said, no. Clark blinked. No? Batman turned to face him fully. You don't rush into Joker's trap because you feel like you should. Joker loves should. Joker lives in should. Clark's jaw tightened. People will get hurt. They will, Batman agreed. But if you run blind, more will. Nightwing stepped between them lightly. Okay. Team meeting later. For now, we track. We don't chase. Clark exhaled through his nose. He didn't like waiting, but he could tell Batman wasn't refusing to help. Batman was refusing to play Joker's game. Clark looked out at the city again. He listened. He heard hundreds of small pains. A woman crying alone. A child coughing. A mugging in an alley. A man shouting at his own reflection. He could stop so much. Right now. The feeling was like holding back a flood with his hands. He forced himself to keep still. Fine, Clark said. We track. Batman nodded once, like that was all he needed. And somewhere else, Joker smiled because he knew Clark had felt the pull. He knew the city was already squeezing him. The next day, Gotham's press decided to name the Flying Man. Gotham's press was not kind. Some called him the Alien. Some called him the Meteor Man. A few called him Superman, like they were daring the word to stick. Clark heard it through radio chatter while he stood inside the cave, hands resting on the edge of the computer table. He flinched a little at the name, not because it hurt him, because it didn't belong here yet. Batman watched him react. That name means something to you. Clark's voice was quiet. It's what some people called me. Where I'm from. Batman's eyes narrowed. You didn't tell me. Clark met his gaze. You didn't ask. Nightwing whistled softly. Okay, Superman. That's simple. Alfred set down a cup of tea. It's also rather on the nose. Clark almost smiled. Batman didn't. Names become leverage, Oracle added. And your face is already leverage. People are trying to unmask you online. Clark's shoulders went stiff. They won't find anything. Batman's voice was sharp. They'll try anyway. And someone like Luthor will succeed if you give him time. Clark's expression darkened. Luthor shouldn't be in this world, Batman replied. He is in every world. That line landed heavy. Clark asked, Did he contact you? Batman didn't deny it. Yes. Clark's eyes sharpened. What did he want? Batman's reply was simple. To offer help. Clark scoffed quietly. He doesn't help. He trades. Batman studied Clark's face. You hate him? Clark didn't like the word hate, but he didn't lie. I don't trust him. Batman nodded once. Good. Neither do I. Nightwing looked between them. Is this where we talk about feelings? Batman shot him a look. Nightwing held up his hands. Fine, no feelings. Alfred said dryly. A shame. It might do wonders for everyone involved. Clark's mouth twitched. Batman turned back to the screen. Joker is moving, and Crane is missing. Oracle's voice sharpened. Not just missing. Quiet. Too quiet. Nightwing muttered. That's always the worst kind. Batman looked at Clark. You want to help? Then you help with discipline. Clark nodded. Tell me what you need. Batman paused. Then he said something Clark didn't expect. I need you to accept that you can't save everyone, Batman said. Clark's eyes hardened. No, Batman's voice didn't rise. You will learn it anyway. Gotham teaches it. Clark stepped closer. Then I'll teach Gotham something back. Batman stared at him for a long moment. Then he said, That's exactly what scares me. That night, Joker made his move. He didn't attack a bank. He didn't poison a reservoir. He didn't blow up a bridge. He attacked Gotham's sense of choice. Oracle caught the first signal. Emergency call. School bus. East side. Nightwing was already moving. On it! Batman's voice cut in. It's a trap. Clark was already on his feet. A school bus? Batman blocked his path with his body, which was pointless physically, but meaningful anyway. Listen, Batman said. Joker wants you to rush. He wants you to pick a side on camera. Clark's jaw clenched. Then we go together. Batman didn't argue. He nodded once. Together. They moved like a dark and bright storm across rooftops. Clark could have flown and reached it faster alone. He didn't. He matched Batman's route so Batman could read the city and guide the approach. When they reached the street below the bus, the scene looked like a movie set built for panic. A bus sat sideways across an intersection. Its tires were shredded. Its windows were cracked. Inside, children screamed. A clown-faced man with a camera rig stood on the hood, waving like it was a parade. Joker. On the other side of the intersection, a second crisis waited. A crowd of civilians was packed behind police tape near a power station entrance. A timer beeped from a device strapped to the gate. A sign painted in bright red read, "Pick." Gotham police stood frozen, guns raised but useless, faces pale, and cameras were everywhere. Joker spotted Batman first and bowed dramatically. Then his eyes snapped to Clark. His smile stretched wider. "There he is," Joker shouted, voice loud enough for everyone. "The big boy scout." Clark's stomach turned at the way Joker said it, like he could taste the word. Batman's voice was low in Clark's ear. "Don't talk to him," Joker clapped. "Aw, he's shy. That's okay. Bats will speak for him." Joker pointed at the bus. "Kids, screaming, sticky hands. You know, the whole package." Then Joker pointed at the power station. "And over there?" Boom, lights out. Hospitals, life support. Oh, and the tunnels flood a little. Gotham loves a flood. Clark's eyes flashed with anger. Joker leaned in toward the nearest camera like he was telling a secret. "So," Joker said, "Mr. Not From Here, what do you do?" Clark didn't answer Joker. He listened. He heard the bus engine, stalling. He heard frightened heartbeats. He heard the timer on the gate. He heard a second timer, hidden inside the bus. His face went still. Batman noticed. "There are two." Clark nodded once. "Yes." Joker's eyes lit up. "He's thinking." "Look at him think." Batman's mouth tightened. "We don't play." Clark's voice stayed calm, even as his body tightened like a coiled spring. "We don't." He moved, not as a blur for show, as precision. He shot forward and up, not toward Joker, but toward the bus roof. His hand went through the air and tore away the camera rig without hurting Joker. The rig shattered against the street. Joker's smile didn't fade. "Rude." Clark's eyes shifted to the bus windows. He didn't rip the door off. He didn't panic the kids with a sudden explosion of strength. He melted the lock with a thin, careful beam of heat vision. The door clicked open. "Everyone out," Clark said, voice firm and clear. "One at a time. Follow Batman's friend." Nightwing appeared at the bus door like he had been fired from a cannon. He held his hands up and spoke fast, friendly, steady. Hey, it's okay. We're gonna get you out. Single file, no pushing." The kids began to move. Meanwhile, Batman sprinted toward the power station device. He didn't need Clark for that. He needed time. Clark gave him time. Clark's X-ray vision locked onto the second hidden device under the bus seats. His fingers moved faster than most eyes could track. He reached through an access panel and crushed the timer mechanism without igniting anything. He then sealed the wires with a cold breath freeze so sparks couldn't jump. Joker's eyes narrowed for the first time. He hadn't expected skill, he had expected panic. Joker hopped down from the bus hood and danced backward. Oh, he's not just strong, he's careful. Batman's gonna hate that, Batman yelled over comms. Device is real, he wants it to go off when I fail. Clark's jaw tightened. You won't fail. Batman's voice stayed hard. Don't promise that. Clark didn't answer. He couldn't promise. Batman was right. So Clark did the only thing he could. He made failure harder. Clark rose into the air above the intersection and looked down at everyone. Kids, cops, civilians, cameras, Joker. He lifted both hands, palms open, and spoke in a voice loud enough to carry without sounding like a threat. Move back, Clark said. Give them space. Nobody gets closer. People froze. Some obeyed. Some stared. Joker tilted his head. A speech? We get a speech. Clark's eyes locked on Joker. No hatred, no fear. Just a clear line. This isn't a game, Clark said. Joker's grin widened. Of course it is. Everything is. Batman's hands moved quickly at the gate device. He cut one wire, then another. Sweat ran down his face inside the cowl. Clark heard Batman's heartbeat speed up, not from fear, from math, from time. Joker watched Batman work and began to clap slowly. 1, Joker said. 2. Clark's fists tightened. Nightwing got the last child out. He ushered them toward safety. His voice stayed calm, even as his eyes flicked to the ticking numbers. Oracle's voice came in, tight. Bruce, it's not just one device. There's a secondary charge under the street. Batman's head snapped up. Where? Oracle gave coordinates. Clark saw it instantly through the asphalt. It was meant to blow under the crowd. Clark dove. He didn't shout, he didn't make drama. He simply dropped like a meteor and punched his hands into the street, tearing up asphalt in a controlled circle and lifting the device out before the crowd even understood what was happening. The timer hit 0 in Clark's hands. The device sparked, then died. Crushed by force it couldn't resist. A wave of stunned silence hit the intersection. Joker's smile faltered again. For 1 second, the trap didn't work. Then Joker laughed. He laughed because Joker always had a second trap. A gunshot cracked from a rooftop, not at Clark, at a police officer. The officer jerked and fell. Clark's head snapped toward the sound, and Joker sprinted. Batman finished disarming the gate device and looked up just in time to see Joker vanish into an alley, moving like a rat into a sewer. Nightwing shouted, "I've got him!" Batman barked, "No!" Nightwing chased anyway. Clark hovered for half a second, torn. He heard the officer's heartbeat falter. He heard kids crying. He heard Joker's laughter fading. Batman's voice hit his ear like a command. "Kent! The wounded!" Clark's whole body wanted to chase Joker, to end the threat, to stop the next trap. But the officer's life was real, and right now. Clark dropped to the fallen man. He pressed his hands gently to stop bleeding. He sealed a torn artery with heat vision so thin it barely warmed the skin. The officer gasped. Clark looked up and met the officer's eyes. "Stay with me," he said. "You're going to be okay." The officer didn't look sure. Clark didn't blame him. Above them, Gotham's cameras caught everything. They caught Clark saving the officer. They also caught Joker escaping. And Gotham did what Gotham always did. It started arguing about whether saving someone was a win if the monster got away. Later, when the street was cleared, Batman stood beside Clark in a quieter alley. Rain still fell. Sirens still moved. Batman's voice was low. That was designed to make you choose wrong. Clark's jaw was tight. I chose to save a life. Batman's tone didn't soften. "And Joker will tell the city you chose to let him go." Clark's eyes flashed. "Then the city is wrong." Batman looked at him. "The city isn't a person. You can't reason with it." Clark stared back. "Then I'll outwork it." Batman said nothing. But in the silence, Clark felt something shift. Not trust, not friendship. A thin bridge. And Gotham, hungry as ever, began to test the bridge's weight. 2 weeks passed. Gotham didn't get better, but it adjusted. People learned a new habit. When screams rose, some looked up. Not because they believed in miracles, because they believed in survival. Clark's days became a pattern. He helped where he could without breaking Batman's rules. He stopped the disasters that would have killed dozens. He left the small, quiet crimes to the Bat family when he could, because Batman had explained something harsh but true. "If you stop every mugging with force," Batman had said, "the city learns to call you instead of learning to protect itself." Clark hated that. But he understood the logic. Still, the feeling of restraint sat heavy in his bones. One evening, Clark stood in the cave in borrowed clothes that didn't fit quite right. Alfred had handed him a simple tie. "Not too tight," Alfred said. "You are not strangling the collar. The collar is your friend." Clark tried again. His fingers moved fast, but the tie still looked wrong. Nightwing leaned in. "Dude, you can bench press a mountain, but you can't tie a tie." Clark's mouth twitched. "I'm learning." Batman walked past without comment, but his eyes flicked to the tie for half a second. Alfred cleared his throat. "Master Bruce knows how to tie a tie." Nightwing's grin widened. "Does he?" Batman's voice was flat. "Yes," Alfred added. "He simply refuses to admit that he knows how to do normal things." Clark's shoulders eased a little. The cave felt less like a cage for a moment. Then Oracle's voice cut in. "Bruce, I found something." Batman's head turned. "What?" Oracle sounded focused. "Old records, missing persons, patterns, names that show up in court files and then vanish. It's not just crime, it's a system." Batman's voice went colder. "Court of Owls." Nightwing's smile faded. "They're moving again," Oracle said. "They never stopped." Clark listened, and something clicked in his mind. A system, a hidden chain. That was something he could fight in a way that wasn't just punching. Clark stepped closer to the screens. "Let me help." Batman's eyes narrowed. "How?" Clark chose his words carefully. "The way I normally do. I find the truth." Nightwing blinked. "You mean, like detective work?" Clark nodded. "I'm a reporter, at least where I'm from." Batman held still. "A reporter." Clark met his gaze. "I can listen, I can read, I can connect dots. But I won't do it like a thief. I won't break into people's minds. I won't invade privacy for sport." Batman's eyes stayed sharp. "Your senses can invade privacy by accident." Clark nodded. "Then I'll set rules. I'll follow them." Batman stared at him for a long moment. Then he said, "Fine, but you don't go alone." Clark's mouth tightened. "I can handle." Batman cut him off. "It's not about handling. It's about Gotham. Gotham eats lone heroes." Nightwing raised a hand. "I volunteer as the buddy." Batman didn't look pleased. "No." Nightwing's face fell. "Why not?" "Because you're predictable," Batman said. Nightwing frowned. "That is rude." Batman turned to Oracle. "You guide him, remotely. He stays on comms. He reports everything." Oracle said, "Copy." Clark didn't love being watched, but he understood. Trust had to be built in this city, not declared. He nodded. "Okay." Alfred finished the tie with a neat pull and stepped back. "There," Alfred said. "Now you look like you belong in a library instead of a war zone." Clark glanced at the reflection in a screen. The clothes looked almost normal. Almost. He looked at Batman. "Where do I start?" Batman replied, "With the oldest lies." Clark started with paper. Real paper. Gotham's oldest record sat in a library that smelled like dust and old glue. The building was quiet in the way Gotham rarely was. A guard at the entrance stared at Clark too long, then looked away like he didn't want to be the man who asked questions. Clark walked slowly between shelves. He did not rush. He did not use super speed. He wanted to understand, not just collect. Oracle guided him through an earpiece. "Third floor, City Planning Archives. Look for the names I sent." Clark found the boxes and sat at a table. He opened files and saw patterns that made his stomach tighten. Buildings condemned, then bought cheap, then accidentally burned. Judges who ruled one way, then disappeared from public view. Witnesses who recanted on schedule. It wasn't a villain with a loud laugh. It was a quiet machine. Clark's hands tightened on the paper until it crinkled. He forced himself to relax. He looked up at the library's tall windows. The sky outside was gray. He missed a world where daylight felt like a promise. A librarian walked by and paused, eyes narrowing. "You're new," she said. Clark smiled politely. "Yes." She looked at his face, then away. "You look like trouble." Clark's smile faded a little. "I'm trying not to be." She studied him for a moment. Then she pointed to a back section. "Gotham history. Old court stuff. People don't read it anymore." Clark nodded. "Thank you." He moved to the section and pulled out an old book with a faded owl emblem on the spine. His heartbeat quickened. He had seen that symbol in the files, on a wax seal, on a margin note, on a torn photograph. Oracle's voice sharpened slightly. "You found it," Clark whispered. "Yeah." He opened the book and found a list of names that felt like a map, the kind of map that led underground. Clark exhaled slowly. Batman was right, Oracle asked. About what? Clark stared at the owl symbol. "Some masks you can't punch." A small noise came from behind him, a soft scrape. Clark's senses shifted. He heard a heartbeat that wasn't calm. Not fear, exactly. Training. He turned. No one stood there, but the air felt watched. Clark closed the book and slid it into his bag. He kept his face calm. He walked out of the library at normal speed. He did not look behind him again. But he listened, and he knew he had been noticed. The next lead took him to an abandoned courthouse wing downtown. It was sealed to the public. Broken windows, boards, warning tape, the kind of place Gotham forgot on purpose. Clark stood on the street outside and stared up at it. He could see through the walls, empty halls, old files scattered like leaves, a staircase down to a basement level that wasn't on the public plans. Oracle's voice in his ear was tense. "This place has dead zones in the signal. If you go down, I may lose you." Clark's jaw tightened. "Then I don't go down." A pause. Then Oracle said, "That's the first smart thing you've said all day." Clark almost smiled. Then a shadow moved in a window on the third floor. Clark's eyes sharpened. "I'm not alone." Oracle's voice turned sharp. "Leave. Now." Clark stepped back from the courthouse. A dart shot from a rooftop across the street. Clark caught it between two fingers without looking. He stared at the dart tip. Green. Not paint. Not poison. A glow that made his skin prickle. His stomach turned, like his body recognized a threat before his mind named it. Clark whispered, "Kryptonite." Oracle's voice went tight. "What?" Clark didn't explain. He didn't have time. More darts came. Clark moved fast, not in a straight line. He zigzagged through open air, snatching darts, crushing them, throwing them into a trash can, and sealing the lid with heat vision so nobody could touch them. He could have flown away. But a woman was on the sidewalk nearby, frozen in fear, staring up at the courthouse as if she expected a monster to fall out. Clark grabbed her gently by the arm and moved her behind a parked car. "Stay down," he said. "Cover your head." She nodded, shaking. Clark rose slowly, eyes scanning rooftops. He saw them. Figures in gray armor, faces hidden behind smooth masks. They moved like trained assassins. Not street thugs. Not loud criminals. Talons. Batman had shown him drawings. Bat family stories. Warnings that sounded like myths. But these were real. A Talon leaped from a rooftop, landing in the street with a blade in hand. The blade shimmered green at its edge. Clark's skin crawled. He didn't step back. He stepped sideways, letting the blade pass close without touching him. The Talon moved again, fast and precise, aiming for Clark's ribs. Clark caught the Talon's wrist and twisted, careful, controlled. He could have snapped bone. He didn't. He pulled the blade away and tossed it across the street, embedding it into a brick wall. The Talon didn't flinch. It just attacked again. Another Talon dropped behind Clark, blade raised. Clark heard it. He spun, but the green edge grazed his arm. Pain shot through him like fire. His knees almost buckled. Not because he was weak, because this material didn't care how strong he was. Clark forced himself upright. He backed away, pulling the fight away from the civilians. He spoke into the comm, voice steady but tight. "Batman, Talons, kryptonite blades." Batman's voice snapped back instantly. "Where?" Clark gave the location. Batman said, "Do not engage long. Get out." Clark glanced at the woman behind the car. He glanced at the street. He couldn't just leave. "I'm moving the fight," Clark said. Batman's voice was sharp. "Kent." Clark cut him off, still respectful, still calm. "People are here." Batman didn't argue after that. He just said, "I'm coming." Clark moved. He grabbed a piece of broken concrete from the street and hurled it upward, not at a Talon, but at a rooftop ledge. It shattered the ledge and made debris fall, forcing the snipers to reposition. Clark used that moment to lift a nearby delivery truck. He didn't throw it at anyone. He set it sideways across the street, blocking line of sight from rooftops to civilians. Then he faced the Talons again. They came at him like machines. Clark's body screamed at him to end it fast, to break them, to remove the threat. But he could not afford sloppy movement. Kryptonite blades turned sloppy into death, so he fought like a surgeon. He dodged, he redirected, he disarmed. He used super speed in short bursts, only when he knew exactly where every blade was. A Talon lunged. Clark moved behind it and tapped the armor's joint with 2 fingers, just enough force to lock the leg. The Talon hit the ground. Clark grabbed its mask and pulled it off in one clean motion. Under it was a pale face with dead eyes. Not zombie dead, trained dead. The Talon stared at him like it didn't know how to feel. Clark's chest tightened. "Who are you?" The Talon didn't answer. It bit down on something in its mouth. Clark's eyes widened. "Don't." The Talon's body went rigid. Poison. A self-destruct of the mind. Clark's stomach twisted. This wasn't crime. This was control. More Talons rushed him. Clark moved backward again, guiding them toward the courthouse entrance, away from the street and away from people. He took one hard hit from a kryptonite blade to his shoulder and felt his arm go weak. He forced it to move anyway. He shoved open the courthouse doors and let the Talons follow him inside. The doors slammed behind them. The building swallowed the sound. Inside, the air was colder. Dust floated in weak light. Clark's super hearing caught something deeper. A hum. Not electrical. Not human. A low vibration under the floor, like a sleeping engine. Oracle's voice crackled. "Clark! Clark! I'm losing you!" Clark pressed a hand to his ear. "I'm inside. Signal!" Then the line went, dead. Clark stood alone in the courthouse with Talons closing in. He could hear their boots. He could hear their blades scrape. And under it all, He could hear that low hum getting louder, like something was waking up because he had stepped onto the right stone. Batman reached the courthouse roof in seconds, moving like a dark knife through rain. Nightwing landed beside him and looked down through a broken skylight. "Oh," Nightwing said quietly. "That's not good." Inside, Clark moved through the main hall with careful speed, turning fights into angles. Talons attacked from two sides. Their blades flashed green at the edges. Clark's face was tight with pain, but his eyes stayed clear. He wasn't panicking. That made Batman's gut twist anyway, because the court didn't use talons to win fights. They used talons to guide people into traps. Batman's comms buzzed with Oracle's voice, strained. "Signal is blocked. He's in a dead zone." Batman's voice was flat. "I know." Nightwing looked at Batman. "We go in?" Batman nodded. They dropped through the skylight. Batman hit the ground and rolled, cape flaring, already throwing a smoke pellet. Nightwing hit beside him, Batten's out. Clark heard them and didn't relax. Not fully. But his eyes flicked toward Batman like he was glad, even if he refused to show it. Batman's voice cut through the dust. "Where's the entrance to the lower level?" Clark's jaw tightened. "Under us. The hum. It's coming from below." Nightwing glanced around. "I hate hums." A talon lunged at Batman. Batman met it with a blade of his own, non-lethal, a shock baton strike to the armor joint. The talon staggered. Nightwing swept another talon's legs and snapped cuffs onto its wrists before it could reach its mouth. "No biting," Nightwing said. "Bad habit." Clark took advantage of the distraction and smashed a pillar, not collapsing the ceiling, not random violence. He broke it at a weak point and dropped the stone to block a side corridor so talons couldn't swarm them. Batman watched the move and filed it as controlled structural awareness. Then the floor trembled. A crack ran across the hall tile. Dust fell. Nightwing's eyes widened. "Okay, that's a new problem." Batman's voice went tight. "They're opening something." Clark's face went pale. "This feels like the tunnel, but stronger." Batman didn't ask how Clark knew. Batman already believed the pattern. He reached into his belt and pulled a small device with a clean, sharp beep. Clark stared. "What is that?" Batman replied. "A beacon. Oracle can lock onto it even in a dead zone. If it gets crushed, we lose the signal." Clark nodded once. "Keep it safe," Nightwing muttered. "No pressure." Batman moved to a cracked tile and pried it up. A hidden hatch lay beneath. Clark's eyes narrowed. "They wanted me down there." Batman looked at him. "Yes." Clark's jaw tightened. "Then we don't go." Batman's voice was cold. "We have to. If it opens, it doesn't stop at this building." Clark hated it, but he knew Batman was right. Nightwing stepped up. "Let's do the thing where we go into the spooky basement and regret it instantly." Batman ignored him and dropped into the hatch. Nightwing followed. Clark hesitated for half a second. Then he lowered himself into the darkness, careful, because the cramped space made kryptonite blades even deadlier. The basement tunnel was older than the courthouse. Stone, carved lines in the walls, symbols that didn't match any modern language. Clark's skin prickled. Batman's voice was low. "This is not standard court architecture," Nightwing whispered. "That's because it's cursed architecture." Batman didn't confirm or deny. They moved forward, and the hum grew louder. At the tunnel's end, an ancient chamber waited. It was wide and circular, like a hidden court. An owl symbol filled the floor. Candles burned in grooves that had no business burning after decades underground. Not normal fire. Green-tinged flame. Clark's stomach turned. The air tasted wrong, like metal and smoke. Talons stood around the chamber edge, not attacking, watching. And in the center, A crack in the floor pulsed with shadow. It was thin, like a seam. But it breathed. Nightwing's voice dropped to a whisper. "That's the thing." Batman's eyes narrowed. "It's a door." Clark stepped forward, then stopped. The shadow reacted to him. It rose like smoke pulled toward a vent. A shape formed, half bat, half night, with edges like torn cloth. Not fully solid, not fully here, but close. Clark's heart beat once, hard. He remembered the pressure in the tunnel. This felt like that pressure had learned a name. The shadow bent toward him, and in Clark's ears, the world's sound warped for a second, like the toxin was back even though it wasn't. He heard a whisper that wasn't a voice, not words. An offer. Batman spoke without looking away from the thing. "It wants you to push." Clark's jaw tightened. "I'm not pushing." Nightwing muttered. "It's like it's sniffing you." Batman's hand moved toward a device on his belt. "We seal the door." Clark asked. "How?" Batman's voice stayed flat. "We call someone who understands this." He keyed his comm. "Zatanna." Silence. Then a voice answered, strained through static. "Bruce? Do you know what time it is?" Batman replied, "Yes. And if you don't get here, time may stop meaning anything." A pause. Then Zatanna sighed. "Fine. Location." Batman gave it. Clark stared at him. "You planned for this." Batman didn't look at Clark. "I plan for everything." Nightwing whispered. "He really does." The shadow in the crack pulsed again. It reached upward with a claw-like shape. Clark stepped between it and Batman without thinking. Batman's voice went sharp. "Kent, don't." Clark didn't argue. "If it wants me, it doesn't get you." The shadow pressed down. Stone groaned. Clark's hands shot to the ceiling. Not because he couldn't handle a ceiling, because the pressure wasn't just weight. It was fear pushing the building itself to fail. Clark's shoulders shook once. He held anyway. Nightwing ran to the edge and started cuffing talons in fast, brutal moves. "Hey, no more biting, remember?" Batman threw devices into the grooves of the chamber floor. Not bombs. Anchors. Emitters. Tech meant to disrupt patterns and slow the door's growth. The shadow hissed without sound. Then the talons attacked again, like a switch flipped. Batman and Nightwing met them. Batman moved like a blade, cutting angles, using smoke and shock and traps. Nightwing moved like a whip, fast and flexible, taking down talons without breaking them. Clark couldn't join the fight fully. He was holding the building's failure back with his body, and the shadow knew it. It pushed harder. Clark's vision blurred at the edges, not because of pain, because the thing was trying to make him see what it wanted him to see. A world where he ruled Gotham. A world where no one dared commit crime because they were too scared to breathe. A world where fear kept order. Clark clenched his teeth. He didn't want that world. He wanted a world where people chose good because they believed in it. A voice echoed down the tunnel. "Back away from the crack!" Zatanna shouted as she entered, boots striking stone. She wore a coat over her stage clothes like she had run out in a hurry. Her eyes took one look at the chamber and went wide. "Oh," she said. "You have got to be kidding me." Batman's voice stayed hard. "Seal it?" Zatanna stepped forward and raised her hands. "Everyone stay very still. This is not a punch-it problem." Nightwing, mid-fight, said, "We noticed." Zatanna spoke words backward, sharp and fast. The air shimmered. The grooves in the floor flared. The crack shuddered. The shadow screamed without sound. Clark felt the pressure shift. Not gone, but redirected. Zatanna's face tightened with effort. "It's tied to the city," she grunted. "It's using the fear patterns. It's using him as a key." Her eyes flicked to Clark. Clark's jaw clenched. "I didn't ask for this." Zatanna shot back. "The universe rarely asks." Batman stepped to her side and placed a device at the crack's edge. "Can you bind it to the seal?" Zatanna nodded, sweat on her brow. "Yes, but I need time." Batman looked at Clark. "Hold." Clark's arms trembled. "I am." A talon broke through Nightwing's defense and sprinted toward Zatanna with a kryptonite blade. Nightwing shouted, "Z!" Clark's head snapped toward the talon. He couldn't let go of the ceiling completely, so he did the only thing he could. He fired a thin heat vision line, not at the talon's body, but at the blade's handle. The handle snapped. The kryptonite edge skittered across the stone floor. Batman kicked it away into a corner and slammed a containment capsule over it. Zatanna didn't look up. She kept chanting backward, voice shaking. The crack began to close in slow, stubborn inches. The shadow fought like a storm. It surged, trying to widen again. Clark felt the building strain. He pushed back with everything he had, muscles locked, feet planted. The pressure finally eased a fraction. Batman's device beeped and locked into place. Zatanna shouted one final backward phrase. The chamber flashed with white light. The crack snapped shut like a mouth closing. Silence hit hard. Dust settled. The talons froze as if their strings had been cut. Then they moved again, not to attack, to escape. Smoke flooded the chamber from hidden vents. Batman cursed under his breath. He sprinted after them, but the talons vanished into tunnels that weren't there a minute ago. Nightwing coughed, waving smoke away. "They always do that." Clark lowered his hand slowly. His arms ached where kryptonite had grazed him. He stared at the sealed crack, chest rising and falling. Zatanna leaned against a wall, breathing hard. That was close. Batman asked, "What was it?" Zatanna wiped sweat from her forehead. "A thing tied to Gotham's dark stories. Call it a parasite. Call it an old god. Call it a nightmare that learned how to stand up." Nightwing looked at Clark. "And it likes him." Zatanna's eyes flicked to Clark again. "It doesn't just like him. It recognizes him. Like a lock recognizes a key." Clark's stomach twisted. Batman's voice went colder. "Then we keep you away from places like this." Clark stared at him. "You think I'm the problem?" Batman didn't soften it. "You're the catalyst." Clark's fists clenched. Zatanna stepped between them, tired but sharp. "Listen, he didn't summon it on purpose, but his arrival changed the city's pattern. That's real. If you want to survive this, you need plans that aren't just hit it harder." Batman nodded once, agreed. Nightwing looked at the sealed floor. "So, we won?" Zatanna's expression darkened. "We delayed. That thing doesn't die like a man. It waits." Clark stared at the floor as if he could see through it and find the shadow's eyes. Then he heard something above. A distant siren. A crowd. The city reacting. News helicopters circling. Because the courthouse had shaken. Because dust had poured from windows. Because Gotham never missed a chance to turn fear into a story. Batman led them back up. When they stepped out onto the street, dozens of phones aimed at them. People shouted questions. "Batman, what happened? Is the flying man dangerous? Are we under attack?" Clark stood still, rain sliding down his face. He wanted to say something that would calm them, but he remembered Batman's warning. Names become leverage. Words become traps. So Clark said the simplest truth he could. "Go home," he called, voice carrying but not booming. "Stay inside. Let emergency teams work." Some listened. Some booed. Some stared like they were seeing a myth walk past them. As they moved away, Clark's shoulder throbbed where kryptonite had cut him. Batman noticed. He said nothing until they were back in the cave. Then, quietly, he handed Clark a small lead-lined container. "Any kryptonite you find," Batman said, "goes in that. Immediately." Clark took it. Where did they get it? Batman's mouth tightened. Someone helped them. Clark's eyes narrowed. Waller. Or Luthor. Batman didn't answer. He didn't need to. Alfred met them near the platform with a towel, as if the night had been a normal patrol. He looked at Clark's torn shoulder and sighed. "Oh dear," Alfred said. "You've bled on the suit again." Clark blinked. "Sorry." Alfred shook his head. "Apologies are useless. Sit. I will patch it." Clark sat. Alfred began cleaning the cut with calm hands. Nightwing watched Clark for a moment, then spoke softly. "You okay?" Clark's voice was quiet. "I've been hurt before." Nightwing nodded. "That's not what I meant." Clark looked up. Nightwing's eyes were honest. "This city is heavy. It tries to get inside you." Clark swallowed. "I know." Batman stood at the console, staring at maps and symbols and new data that didn't belong in Gotham's normal crime charts. Oracle's voice came through, low. "The court escaped with something. I don't know what." Batman's reply was a quiet threat. "Then we find out." Clark stared down at the lead-lined container in his hands. He felt something else, too. Not just pain. A mark. A sense that the shadow under Gotham had reached toward him and left a fingerprint on his life. And somewhere, deep below the city, behind sealed stone, the darkness did what Zatanna warned it would do. It waited. It learned. And it smiled without a mouth, because the bright visitor had stepped onto Gotham's oldest board. Now the game wasn't just about saving lives. It was about what Gotham would try to turn him into. 2 weeks later, Gotham had learned a new kind of rhythm. It did not become kinder. It did not become cleaner. It just adjusted its habits around a man who could cross the city in seconds. Clark's mornings started with the sounds. A crash from a construction site. A small apartment fire. A bus stuck at a broken rail crossing. A car that slid on rain and hit a pole. He moved to each one, fast and careful, and he did the work that saved lives before the sirens even arrived. He learned to land softly. He learned to speak in short, calm words. He learned to look like help instead of a storm. At night, he followed Batman's lane. Batman didn't ask him to stop being strong. Batman asked him to stop being careless with what his strength meant to other people. So Clark did patrol windows. He would appear when the Bat family called for a fast rescue, or when something was too big to ignore. Then he would pull back and let Gotham's own defenders work the streets the way they always had. Some nights, he hated it. He would hear a mugging and know he could end it in 1 second. He would hear a frightened voice and feel his body want to move on its own. But he also learned what Batman meant. If he fixed everything alone, Gotham would start to wait for him, and waiting could kill people when he wasn't there. The city's response split down the middle. On one side, there were people who left chalk marks on rooftops where they had been saved. Simple shapes. A little S, a little cape, a little dot for a head. On the other side, there were people who shouted at him from sidewalks. "Go home. Where were you when my brother died last year? You can't fix this." Clark took those words like rain. He didn't argue. He didn't shout back. He just kept working. Because the worst part wasn't the yelling. The worst part was how much he wanted to believe he could fix it anyway. Bruce Wayne did not sleep much during those weeks. He watched patterns tighten like a net. Fear events were no longer random. The court's moves were cleaner. Joker's traps became more focused. Waller's drones stayed just outside Gotham airspace, like sharks at the edge of a beach. And Lex Luthor's name kept showing up where it didn't belong. A shipping record, a lab purchase, a quiet contract under a fake company name. Kryptonite didn't grow on trees. Someone was moving it. Bruce stood at the Batcave console while Oracle's screen scrolled. Nightwing leaned on a rail, eating an energy bar like he was pretending the world wasn't getting heavier. Alfred set a cup of tea beside Bruce, and without looking up, slid a coaster under it. Bruce didn't protest this time. He had stopped wasting energy on the wrong battles. Clark arrived from the elevator, quiet, like he had learned the cave's mood. He looked healthier than that first night, but not rested. The city wore him down in a way punches never could. Bruce spoke first. "Waller requested a meeting," he said. Clark's eyes narrowed. "A request?" Bruce's mouth tightened. "A request with pressure behind it." Oracle added, "She's bringing a support team. That means soldiers and lawyers." Nightwing muttered, "Nothing says welcome like paperwork and guns." Clark looked at Bruce. "Do we go?" Bruce didn't answer right away. He studied Clark's face. Clark didn't look scared. He looked annoyed. That was better. "We go," Bruce said. "But we control the room." Alfred's voice was calm. "And we control the tea." Nightwing snorted once. Clark's mouth twitched, then settled. "Okay," Clark said. "But if she tries to put a leash on me, it won't work." Bruce's eyes sharpened. "It doesn't have to work. It only has to create a public story." Clark went still. He understood what that meant. If the public believed Clark was owned, the city would react. If the city reacted, the darkness under it would feed. Bruce watched the realization hit Clark's eyes and felt something close to approval. He was learning. The meeting took place in a clean, empty hall inside a decommissioned Wayne facility. Bruce chose it because he knew the walls. He knew the exits. He knew which cameras could be cut and which could not. Waller arrived like she owned the air. She wore a dark suit. No cape, no mask, no show. Behind her came men with rifles that weren't pointed up or down. They were pointed at ready. Clark stood across from her with his hands at his sides. He didn't threaten. He didn't bow. He simply stood there, steady as stone. Waller looked at him like she was reading a label on a box. "So," she said, "you're real." Clark blinked once. "Yes." Waller's gaze moved to Bruce. "And you're sheltering him." Bruce's voice was cold. "He's not property." Waller didn't smile. "Everything is property if it has a strategic value." Clark's jaw tightened. "I'm not here to be a tool." Waller nodded slowly, as if she expected that line. "I'm not asking you to be a tool. I'm asking you to be responsible." Clark held her gaze. "I am responsible." Waller stepped closer by one pace. "Then you won't mind oversight." Clark's voice stayed calm. "I will mind." Waller's eyes narrowed. "We can offer legal protection, safe routes, medical support, a public story that keeps people from panicking." Clark didn't like how reasonable it sounded. Waller continued. "We can also offer research, a path to understanding the breach that brought you here. Maybe even a path home." That word hit Clark's chest like a weight. Home. Bruce saw Clark's eyes flicker. Waller saw it too. She moved in on it instantly. "Work with us," Waller said. "We're a tracker. Agree to response protocols. Follow chain of command when the situation is national." Clark's hands clenched, then relaxed. "I can help," Clark said. "But I don't take chains." Waller's expression didn't change. "Then you don't get the benefits," Bruce cut in. "This is extortion." Waller looked at Bruce like he was a child who didn't understand the world. "This is governance." Clark's voice stayed level. "I'll cooperate when lives are on the line. I'll share information that helps. But I won't be owned." Waller leaned in slightly. "You don't get to decide that alone." Clark's eyes hardened. "Actually, I do." For a second, the air felt thin. Not because Clark threatened her, because Waller finally believed he could crush the room if he wanted. Waller didn't flinch. Instead, she turned it into a warning. "Then understand this," she said. "If you stay in Gotham, and you keep acting, and people die in the fallout, you will be blamed." You will be hunted. You will be made into a story that ends badly. Clark's voice lowered. People die here every day. I'm trying to reduce that number. Waller nodded once. Then reduce it under supervision. Clark didn't answer, because if he answered with anger, she won. He simply said, "No." Waller held his gaze for a long moment. Then she stepped back. "Fine," she said. "I'll build the box anyway. Boxes don't need permission." She turned and walked out. Her people followed. When the doors shut, Clark exhaled slowly. Bruce watched him. "You felt it," Bruce said. Clark nodded, quiet. The trap, the home offer. Bruce's voice stayed hard. "She'll use it again." Clark looked up. "Then I won't let it work." Bruce didn't correct him this time. He just said, "Good." That same night, Lex Luthor requested a meeting too. Not with soldiers. With a clean suit and a clean building and a clean smile. Clark went because Bruce went. They met Lex in a private room above a LexCorp relief center in Gotham, built fast after the tunnel disaster. Cameras were everywhere, but they were polite cameras, the kind that claimed to be for safety. Lex stood by a window with Gotham spread behind him. He turned when they entered and smiled like they were old friends. "Clark," he said warmly. Clark's eyes narrowed. "You're not from here." Lex's smile stayed in place. "I'm from any place that has opportunity." Bruce didn't bother with manners. "What do you want?" Lex spread his hands. "Peace. Clarity. Solutions." Clark's voice was flat. "You want control." Lex's eyes flashed for half a second, then softened again. "I want stability. You call it control because it makes you feel pure." Clark stepped forward a little. "Why are you here?" Lex leaned against the desk. "Because you fell out of the sky in the one city that eats gods for breakfast. I couldn't ignore that." Clark didn't blink. "You're feeding this city kryptonite." Lex chuckled lightly. "Big accusation." Bruce's voice cut in. "We have shipping anomalies, lab purchases, middle companies. It's you." Lex looked at Bruce with polite respect. "You really are impressive." Then Lex looked back at Clark. "Let's skip the dance." "Yes, I can acquire rare materials. In any world." Clark's fists tightened. "People got hurt." Lex shrugged as if it was weather. "People get hurt. The difference is whether the hurt has a purpose." Clark's voice sharpened. "Your purpose isn't worth it." Lex's smile widened. "You haven't heard my offer." Lex walked to a table and tapped a device. A hologram rose, a model of a rip in space, like the one that brought Clark here. "I can stabilize a portal," Lex said. "I can build you a way home." Clark's throat tightened. He didn't want to show it. Lex watched him anyway. "And," Lex continued, "I can help you solve Gotham." Clark's eyes narrowed. "By ruling it?" Lex's smile was thin now. "By ending its chaos. Imagine it, Clark. No more Joker. No more court. No more fear gas. You could do it in a week." Clark's voice lowered. "At what cost?" Lex stepped closer. "The cost of being feared." Clark stared at him. "I won't do that." Lex sighed, like Clark was boring him. "Then you'll keep bleeding for a city that will never love you." Bruce spoke, cold as stone. "We're done." Lex didn't stop them as they turned to leave. He only called out, friendly as ever. "Clark," Lex said, "if Gotham breaks you, remember that I tried to offer you a clean exit." Clark didn't look back, but the word home followed him like a shadow. The shadow under Gotham followed too. It came in quiet moments, when Clark stood on a rooftop alone and listened to the city's pain. When he closed his eyes for 1 second too long. Sometimes it wasn't a voice, it was a picture. Gotham under a bright sun that never set. Crime gone because criminals were too scared to breathe. Batman standing beside Clark, not as a partner, but as a soldier. People smiling, but their smiles looked forced. Clark would open his eyes and feel sick, because the offer wasn't evil in a simple way. It was easy, and easy was tempting when you were tired. One night, Clark stood at the cave entrance and stared out at the rain. Alfred's voice came from behind him. "Master Kent," Alfred said. Clark turned. "Alfred." Alfred held a small cloth in his hands. "You left your boots muddy. Again." Clark blinked, then looked down. There was a dark streak on the stone floor. "I'm sorry," Clark said, quick. Alfred nodded. "I know. But you see, that's the point. You keep apologizing as if that fixes the problem. It doesn't." Clark's brow furrowed. "So, what do I do?" Alfred's eyes were kind but firm. "You clean it, and you stop treating discipline as a punishment. Discipline is how good people stay good when they're tired." Clark swallowed. The words hit deeper than Alfred knew. "Right," Clark said softly. "Okay." He took the cloth and cleaned the streak himself. Alfred watched and added almost casually, "Also, the coaster rule still applies to you, even if you can lift a mountain." Clark let out a small breath that almost became a laugh. "Understood," he said. And for a moment, the shadow's pictures felt farther away. The next morning, the citywide crisis began. It started with a laugh on every screen. Public billboards, phones, news stations, even a few emergency alert channels that should have been locked. Joker's face filled Gotham like a disease. He smiled wide, eyes bright, voice cheerful. "Good morning, Gotham," Joker sang. "And good morning to our new friend." Then the screen cut to live feeds. 3 locations, 3 countdowns, a hospital wing, a subway tunnel, a crowded courthouse steps area, right above the sealed chamber they had fought in weeks ago. Oracle's voice hit the cave like a slap. "He's broadcasting citywide," she said. "He hacked everything." Bruce was already moving. He didn't do this alone. Nightwing's voice was tight. "Those are court locations." Clark stared at the screens and felt his stomach drop. Joker had made it a game again, and the court had chosen the board. Then the air changed. Clark could feel it like a pressure shift. Fear rose across Gotham in a wave, and deep under the city, the hum returned. Zatanna's voice came through a separate line, already awake, already strained. "I felt it," she said. "He's feeding the door." Bruce spoke fast. "Oracle, evacuations. Gordon, lock down the streets and keep people moving away from the courthouse. Nightwing, hospitals. I'm going to the chamber." Clark stepped forward. "I'll go to the subway. People will be trapped." Bruce looked at him. For a split second, Bruce's eyes held something new. Not doubt. Worry. Because if the shadow got inside Clark's head again during a citywide panic, the consequences would not be local. Bruce reached into a case and pulled out a lead-lined device. He held it out to Clark. Clark stared. "What is it?" Bruce's voice was flat, but his hand didn't shake. "A containment capsule. Inside is a tool. If you feel the shadow pushing you toward that easy path, if you feel yourself slipping, use it. It will weaken you long enough for us to pull you out." Clark's throat tightened. "You're giving me a way to stop me," Clark said quietly. Bruce held his gaze. "I'm giving you proof that I'm not lying about my fears, and proof that I'm still choosing to work with you." Nightwing stared at Bruce like he had never seen him do something that honest. Clark took the capsule. He didn't look offended. He looked grateful. "Thank you," Clark said. Bruce nodded once. "Don't make me regret it." Clark's voice was steady. "I won't." Then he launched. Not like a weapon, like a rescue siren with a body. In the subway tunnel, the air was already turning thick. Scarecrow's toxin spread low to the ground, pushed by small fans hidden in maintenance grates. People stumbled. They screamed at shadows. Some tried to climb tracks. Some ran toward the danger because fear made directions meaningless. Clark dropped into the tunnel mouth and held his breath. He moved fast, but he moved with care. He lifted fallen beams. He caught a man who had slipped onto the track and carried him to a platform. He used freeze breath to block vents, then heat vision to seal fan motors without igniting anything. He kept his voice steady, loud, and simple. "Follow the lights," he said. "Hold hands. Don't run. Walk." A child looked up at him with wide eyes and whispered, "Superman." Clark's chest tightened. He could have corrected it. He could have said, "Just Clark." But in that moment, the name felt like a rope for frightened people to grab. So he only said, "I've got you." The fear around them surged. The shadow pressed down again, not visible like a body this time, but felt in the tunnel walls. The darkness seemed thicker than it should be. Clark's skin prickled, and then the pictures returned. Gotham quiet. Gotham obedient. Gotham safe under fear. Clark clenched his jaw. "No," he whispered to himself. He pulled the lead-lined capsule from his belt and held it like a reminder. Not a threat. A promise. He kept moving. He cleared the tunnel enough for first responders to enter. Then he shot upward through a maintenance shaft and burst into the open air, gasping. Above him, Gotham's sky looked like it was being squeezed. He could hear other crises, hospitals, fires, a bridge piling up again. He could not do it all alone. He remembered the lesson he hated. He called in. "Oracle," he said into comms. "Subway evac route is open. Send teams now. I'm moving to the courthouse." Oracle's voice was tight. "Bruce is already there. Z2. Clark's eyes narrowed. "Then I'm going." He accelerated. Bruce reached the courthouse steps as crowds gathered, pulled there by the broadcast like moths to a flame. Gordon's men tried to hold lines. People pushed. People cried. People shouted that the city was cursed. Joker's voice played from hacked speakers in the street. "Look at you all," Joker sang. "All those little hearts beating. All that fear. Delicious." Under the courthouse steps, the sealed chamber throbbed. Zatanna stood at the edge of a cracked stone panel, hands raised, eyes focused. "It's opening," she said, voice strained. "He's using the citywide fear as fuel, and the court is helping him keep the fear steady." Nightwing arrived from the hospital route, breathing hard. "Talons," he said. "They're everywhere, not attacking me, hurting people." Bruce's mouth tightened. "They want the crowd here." He looked up at the courthouse steps and saw masked figures blending into the panic, nudging people closer to the building. Then he saw Joker. Not on a screen, on a balcony above, waving like a king. He held a microphone and smiled wide. "Bats," Joker called, "and friends." He pointed down toward the crowd. "You know what's fun about a crowd? It's like a giant breathing shield." Bruce's hands tightened. Joker laughed. "Don't worry. I'm not asking your sunshine buddy to punch the people. I'm asking him to choose." Bruce's calm crackled. Clark's voice came through, moving fast. "I'm 2 seconds out." Bruce's voice stayed hard. "Do not engage Joker first. Door first." Joker leaned over the balcony and shouted, "Oh, I can hear you." "I can hear everything," Zatanna snapped. "Stop talking! I need quiet to seal this!" Joker clapped like she was entertaining him. Then the stone beneath the courthouse steps split. A crack formed. Shadow seeped out like smoke from a furnace. The crowd screamed. Fear spiked. The shadow grew. It rose in a shape that was almost a bat, almost a man, almost nothing at all. And it turned its attention upward, like it was waiting for Clark. Bruce felt his stomach twist. He didn't believe in myths, but he believed in patterns. And the pattern said the shadow wanted Clark as an anchor. Clark landed at the base of the steps, cape snapping, eyes wide as he saw the crack. For 1 second, the crowd didn't scream. They stared, like a new story had just stepped into an old one. Joker's voice rang out, thrilled. "There he is," Joker cried. "Superman!" Clark didn't look at Joker. He looked at the crack. He looked at Zatanna's strained hands. He looked at Bruce, and in Bruce's eyes, he saw the truth. This wasn't about stopping a bomb. This was about stopping Gotham from becoming a door. Clark stepped forward. "What do you need?" Zatanna's voice shook. "I need the fear to drop. I need the crowd to back away. And I need the crack contained while I bind the seal." Bruce barked orders into comms. "Gordon, push them back. Now!" Gordon tried. People pushed harder. The shadow pulsed. Joker laughed. "You can't push fear back, Bats. Fear pushes you." Clark inhaled. Then he spoke. Not a speech, not a sermon, just a clear, simple command with calm behind it. "Everyone," Clark said, voice carrying over the chaos, "listen to me." Some people froze because the sound was steady when everything else was shaking. Clark kept it short. "Walk away from the courthouse," he said. "Not run. Walk. Hold hands. Follow the police lines. You will be okay." A woman in the front yelled, "Why should we trust you?" Clark looked at her, eyes serious. "Because I'm standing between you and that." The shadow surged as if it hated the sentence. Clark stepped closer to the crack. Bruce's voice cut in, sharp. "Kent." Clark didn't look back. "I know." He lowered himself toward the crack and planted his feet on the stone, right at the edge. The shadow reached upward. It pressed against Clark like a weight that wasn't physical. Clark's eyes flickered. Pictures flashed. Fear rule. Obedience. Peace. Clark's jaw clenched. He pulled the lead-lined capsule from his belt and held it tight in his fist like a talisman. Not because it was magic, because it was a choice. "I'm not your king," Clark whispered into the dark. The shadow pressed harder. Clark didn't punch it. He did something else. He became a barrier. He widened his stance and used his body like a living wall, keeping the shadow from surging up into the crowd. Zatanna's voice rose, chanting backward, fast and sharp. Bruce threw tech anchors into the grooves around the crack. They latched to stone with a hard click. Nightwing moved through the crowd, guiding people back, pulling children away, taking hits from panicked elbows without getting angry. Joker watched from the balcony, eyes bright. Then he did what he always did. He tried to make it personal. He pulled a gun. He aimed it at a police officer below. Clark's head snapped toward the movement. Joker grinned. "Look, a simple choice," Bruce shouted. "Don't—" Clark's eyes flashed with anger. For a split second, the easy path whispered again. End Joker. End the choices. The games. Clark felt his fingers tighten. Then he remembered the tunnel. He remembered the officer he saved. He remembered Alfred's words. Discipline is how good people stay good when they're tired. Clark moved. He didn't fly at Joker. He flicked a pebble from the ground with super speed. It struck the gun's barrel at the perfect angle. The gun spun out of Joker's hand and clattered across the balcony floor. Joker stared at his empty hand, then laughed even harder. "Oh, that's fun," Joker called. "You're a restraint guy." Clark didn't answer. He turned back to the crack and held it. The shadow shrieked without sound, furious that it couldn't turn him into a weapon. Zatanna's chant reached a peak. Bruce's anchors beeped and locked. The crack began to close, slowly, stubbornly. The shadow fought like a storm. Clark leaned into it, muscles trembling. Not because he couldn't handle pressure, because he was handling pressure that came from a city's fear, a magic door, and a mind game at once. The crowd kept moving back as police lines finally held. Fear dropped by inches. The shadow weakened by inches. Then Joker's men triggered one last blast, smoke and confetti and bright lights, trying to spike panic again. Clark didn't flinch. He rose slightly and blew a controlled gust of air that cleared the smoke away from the crowd without knocking people over. He kept his voice steady. "Keep walking. Don't run." People listened, because the calm was contagious. Zatanna shouted one final backward phrase. The crack snapped shut. The shadow collapsed inward, like a breath sucked back into lungs. Silence fell hard. For 1 second, Gotham didn't know what to do without fear screaming in its ear. Then the city found a new sound: relief. It didn't last long. Joker was already gone by the time Batman reached the balcony. A smoke trail, a laughing echo, a playing card pinned to a wall. The court's talons vanished too, slipping through panic and side doors like ghosts. But the door was sealed. The worst thing had been stopped. Clark stood at the courthouse steps, chest rising and falling, cape damp, hands shaking slightly from effort. Bruce approached him, not with praise, with truth. "You didn't take the bait," Bruce said. Clark swallowed. "I wanted to." Bruce's eyes stayed sharp. "And you didn't." Nightwing came up beside them, breathing hard, eyes wide. "Okay, that was the most Gotham thing I've ever seen, and also the most you thing I've ever seen." Clark managed a tired half-smile. "Not sure if that's good?" Nightwing snorted. "It's terrifying. So, yes, good." Police lights washed the street in red and blue. Waller's drones hovered at the edge of the skyline and did nothing, because for once, the moment wasn't hers. Lex's relief team arrived with cameras and tried to frame themselves as heroes. Bruce shut them down with one cold look and one legal call. Gordon walked up, soaked, exhausted, and stared at Clark for a long moment. Then Gordon said, "Simple, plain, and honest. Thanks." Clark nodded. "You're welcome." Joker's broadcast screens went dark across the city. But the memory stayed. Not the laugh. The fact that the city had followed a calm voice instead of panic. Not everyone. Not forever. But enough. And in Gotham, enough mattered. Dawn came like it was embarrassed to show its face. The sky turned a weak gray that almost looked like light. Clark stood on a high ledge, shaped like a gargoyle's back. Below him, Gotham's streets were quiet in the way they got quiet only after a disaster. He listened to the city breathe. He heard ambulances, but fewer than last time. He heard people talking softly, not screaming. He heard a child say, "He saved us!" and a parent answer, "Don't say that too loud." Clark didn't blame them. Behind him, a door opened onto the roof. Footsteps, steady, familiar. Bruce stepped out first, cape hanging heavy, face unreadable. Alfred followed with a tray balanced like this was any normal morning. 2 cups of tea, 2 coasters. Alfred walked straight to Clark and held out a cup. "Tea," Alfred said. Clark blinked, then took it. "Thank you." Alfred immediately slid a coaster onto the gargoyle's stone back like it belonged there. Clark stared at the coaster. Alfred stared back. Clark set the cup on it carefully. Alfred nodded, satisfied. "Excellent." Bruce made a sound that might have been a sigh. Alfred handed Bruce the second cup. Bruce put it on the coaster without arguing. Clark watched that and felt something warm in his chest that had nothing to do with the tea. Not victory. Not comfort. Something smaller. Routine. Clark looked out at the skyline. "I keep thinking about the offer," he admitted quietly. Bruce didn't ask which offer. He knew there were many. Clark continued, voice low. "Waller's offer. Luthor's offer. The other one. The one in the dark." Alfred's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened slightly. Bruce's voice was flat. "And?" Clark swallowed. It promised an easy fix. Bruce's gaze stayed on the city. Gotham sells easy the same way Joker sells laughter. Clark nodded. I know. He took a slow breath. In my world, Clark said, I can stop a lot of bad things quickly. Here, every time I stop one, 3 more hide behind it. Bruce didn't deny it. He wouldn't lie just to make Clark feel better. Clark's hands tightened around the warm cup. I'm not bored here. I'm overwhelmed. Alfred spoke gently. That is quite different from boredom, sir. Clark glanced at him. Yeah. Bruce finally looked at Clark fully. You can leave, Bruce said. The words surprised Clark. Bruce continued, voice hard but honest. You don't owe Gotham your life. Clark stared at the skyline again. Then he said the truth that had been forming inside him since the bridge. I know, Clark said. But I can't hear a city drowning and pretend I didn't. Bruce held his gaze for a long moment. Then Bruce said, quiet and plain, Gotham doesn't do miracles. Clark didn't smile. He didn't posture. He simply answered, just as plain. Then we do work, Clark said. A weak sun edged above the clouds for half a second. It wasn't bright. It wasn't warm. But it was real. Below them, Gotham kept moving. The court would plan again. Joker would laugh again. Waller would build boxes again. Luther would sharpen his smile again. And somewhere under the stone, the sealed darkness waited, patient and hungry. But for this one morning, the city had a new fact to live with. The sky wasn't empty anymore, and the dark wasn't the only thing watching.